Hey everybody, it's Gregg Bendian here at the ProgCast, where we speak with all sorts of interesting musicians. And I don't know if it's a spate, but it's certainly a trend that we do have British musicians on the show quite frequently, as I am quite fond of the music that comes out of that area. And today is no exception to that. And the other trend, of course, is that we do like to talk to drummers on the show, drummer talk. But this is going to go way beyond that into rock history and to so much important music. My guest today is drummer, singer, band leader, Bev Bevan. You know him from the Electric Light Orchestra and the Move, of course, but he's done so much more than that, work with Black Sabbath. Of course, the connection to Roy Wood is huge, and so much rock history, so much music history in this man. Bev, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Yep.
They're all true. They're verifiably true. So, Bev, I wanted to talk with you the way I ask so many people when we're talking about that period of the 60s and what an impact it had on the transition from whatever. It could have been skiffle, it could have been big band, it could have been jazz, it could have been some other form of music as it starts to turn into rock music. Because if you think about it, obviously guys like Ginger Baker, were they rock drummers? They were jazz drummers who then moved over to rock. And I'm wondering, what's your history like in terms of how you start off as a drummer, and then as you start to become a professional, really what happens stylistically, musically for you?
Well, I go back a long, long time, and I remember the music of the sort of mid '50s. It was so dull, and I had no interest in the crooners but then I heard I was at school. I was only about 11, I think, at school, but I heard Elvis Presley. I heard. Heartbreak Hotel. And I thought, wow, what is that? And then I started to listen more and more to early American rock and roll music, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Ray Charles, the Everly Brothers. And I just loved it. I wanted to play. I just wanted, it literally changed my life, really. I just knew from listening to that music, I just wanted to play that kind of music.
And you're self-taught?
Yeah, totally. It's quite a nice story. We formed a band at school. I went to a place called Moseley Grammar School in Birmingham, and we formed a little band. We called ourselves Rocking Ronnie and the Renegades. And I decided I wanted to play drums. And I'd never picked up a pair of sticks in my life, but I wanted to play drums. And I asked my mum. My dad had died when I was 10 years old, and we weren't wealthy by any means, and we lived above a little shop that we ran. And I said, Mum, I'm going to be a drummer in a little band at school, and I need a drum kit. And it was a Broadway Silver Sparkle that I'd seen at a shop in Birmingham. And I said, but it's £35. Which was a fortune back then. It really was, about 1959. And my mum said yes. And I thought, wow, that was easy. And I brought this drum kit home on the bus, and got to set it up. Didn't know what I was doing. And we had rehearsals. And it was and I found it pretty easy to play without, I never had a lesson. And then after about 6 months, my mum said, your dad was a drummer. And I had no idea. And his name was Charles Thomas Bevan, but they nicknamed him Bev. So it was the Bev Bevan Trio. And he used to play in the wartime years, a little dance trio. And so that's where I got the drumming, and that's where I got my name from as well. So it was an eye-opener, yeah.
What is your birth name?
Well, I am a boy named Sue, because my birth name is Beverly Bevan. So I grew up in a pretty tough area of Birmingham with basically a girl's name. I mean, I love my name. It's a great, Bev Bevan is a terrific stage name. I know that now. But when I was growing up as Beverly Bevan, I had a lot of, they took the Mickey a lot out of me. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first bands that you're in, what is the music that you're playing?
The first serious band, I mean, I went to work for a year after I left school, then I couldn't wait to turn pro, as it was. And a guy called Denny Lane had seen me play in my little school band. And he said, I want us to form a band together and turn pro and we're going to make it. He was the most positive guy I'd ever met. He had so much ambition about him. And we did that, and we called ourselves Denny Lane and the Diplomats. And we were good, and we got lots and lots of gigs. We worked almost every night through 1963 into 64. We opened for the Beatles, we opened for the Rolling Stones, we opened for Little Stevie Wonder. We nearly got ourselves a record deal, but lost out to the Searchers instead. And but it was a great band. And then one night we went to see at our local university the Spencer Davis Group playing with Steve Winwood, and Denny just fell in love with the blues almost instantly, and he said, "I'm not playing pop anymore. I'm going to form a blues band." And he went off and formed the Moody Blues.
Yeah, he's an important figure for progressive music, for so much music. But that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I still keep in touch with him, which is lovely. I mean, he lives in Florida these days, but I haven't seen him for years. But I mean, the stuff with the Moody Blues, then all the stuff he's done with Wings and his solo stuff. Very talented guy, Danny.
Super talented and has created so much great music. I have so much fondness of his work with Wings.
Yeah, indeed.
But there's, of course, there's everything else. Um, I'm curious about regional stuff. Can you tell me about what the Birmingham scene would have been like?
Yeah, well, for a start, it was absolutely thriving. I mean, it was so good back in those days, in the 60s. I feel sorry for bands these days. They've got nowhere to play. When I started out, every pub, and there are hundreds and hundreds of pubs in Birmingham and in and around Birmingham, they all had live music. And then there were youth clubs and there were nightclubs. You could play in the park. You could play at skating rinks. You could in cinemas. There's so many venues. It was fantastic, and you just learn when you work that hard. When you work in all the time, you get tighter and tighter, really. Yeah. And Birmingham, it started off kind of pop. We had some British hit singles by bands I don't think you would have heard of. Maybe the Applejacks first, I think. Then it was the Rocking Berries, the Fortunes, Spencer Davis Group. And now they were, now they turned it into like a more bluesy sort of feel. But I guess the most important band and obviously my band, The Move, but there was a heavy sort of trend, and that's where Black Sabbath came from.
So is that to do you think, with the working class industrial vibe of that region? Where does that sound come from? Because we have to admit that the heavy sound is associated with Birmingham.
Yes, it is. And Tony Iommi, who's is my best friend. I mean, he's got a lot to answer for him. And he basically, he's credited with inventing heavy metal. The guitar riff, and he's a fabulous guitar player. I mean, he's a lot better than just a heavy metal player. He's a beautiful acoustic player as well. And I'm going to see him. Me and Joy are going to see him at the weekend. So, but he inspired a kind of a heaviness. And I think I was the loudest drummer in the West Midlands.
Okay, that's a really interesting point, Bev. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no.
When you are playing hard, when you are playing loud, when you have a big sound, That's embraced, or is that something that you are introducing into a louder guitar sound world?
Well, I was always told to quieten down, and and I generally wouldn't. I just liked hitting the drums hard. I tune them low and I hit them hard. I've always done the same thing. Um, but then at the same time, Bill Ward had a Black Sabbath. Again, it's a real heavy drummer. And then John Bonham came along, and he used to come and watch me, Bonzo, um, and he'd steal from me ideas. And then he overtook me, and then we were really good pals. And then I used to go and watch early Led Zeppelin concerts, and he was hitting the drums even heavier than I was.
With bigger sticks?
Yeah, probably. But he was. I've seen him wreck people's drum kits. When he's got up and played, he's literally smashed them to pieces. He was a madman, really. But a sad loss. I can't believe that he died in 1980. It just doesn't make sense to me. But there you are.
Something about Bonham, which I wanted to mention with you, is that he's hitting hard, but he's got good tone. He's getting all good tones from the drums. You can tell
Yeah,
he's got a foot. You can tell that the tuning works for how he's hitting. The
yeah.
sound, it's just such a sound. What did you think of his sound when he changed over to the Vista Light kit? Did you care about that? Did you notice that?
I loved him. I love the fact that, and Robert Plant is a good friend of mine now still. And Robert's never got over John's passing, and he's had lots of drummers, including Andy Edwards, who we talked to earlier. He will not let them use double bass drum pedals, any of them, because John never did. And you listen to the Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, I think in particular, and some of the bass drum techniques that he used, they were so subtle. They were just so brilliant. And it was only one bass drum. That's all it was.
Yeah. Yeah, and he had the ability to, I think, coming out of Max Roach, to circulate between the toms and the foot in a way that there's a lot going on.
Yeah, he was, because we were really good friends, and we used to talk drums, and we had, I think he loved Earl Palmer, and he loved that style, but he also loved, he also loved Buddy Rich, same as me, so he's not all, he's got a swing, he's got real swing too. I hope I have too. Some drummers don't have it. I'm not naming names, but it's great. You've got a swing as well as just rock.
Well, you mentioned our good friend Andy Edwards, wonderful drummer, educator, and he and I had this conversation about the fact that you can sit down at the drums and the feel is unbelievable, just like playing any normal kind of beat. And there are guys like that with Bonzo and certain guys that it's such a great feel. Was that always natural for you?
Yeah, well, see, myself and Andy work in a band called Quill now, and we do. One of us plays percussion, one plays drums, and we do a version of Heaven and Hell, the Sabbath's Heaven and Hell, where I start off on drums, and then we get to the instrumental part, and we literally switch, and it looks great on stage as we play. He climbs onto the kit, and we play together, and then I go onto the percussion, and he works great. And I don't know, we're both very different. He's much jazzier and proggier than I am, and the stuff that he does that I can't do. But I think I've got a style that he says, well, I can't do that, So, but together we work,
It's interesting. Different kinds of drummers with different skill sets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the moment when the move happens for you? What's the moment where you're just making rock history with that band, and that's still in the international rock vocabulary? Everyone knows "Do Ya." Can you tell me about the beginnings of the move?
Yeah, the actual very start was the bass player, Ace Kefford, and the rhythm guitar player, Trevor Burton, young lads. And they went to see a very young David Bowie, just as he was about to make it, really. And they asked him, hey, we want to be in a band, we want to and make it big. We're playing little bands in Birmingham, but we want to make it big like you're going to. And his advice was, he said, well, just get whatever your lineup is, just get the best guys you can from Birmingham, put them together, rehearse like crazy. I mean, like really, really get tight. Get yourselves down to London, find yourself a manager. And we did exactly that. And we rehearsed and rehearsed. They asked me to join. They asked Carl Wayne to join, and they asked, of course, Roy Wood to join. And that 5-piece lineup of the Move was fabulous. The first year or two, and our big break came. We got to London. A guy called Tony Secunda, who managed the Moody Blues earlier on, he got us a residency at the Marquee Club in Wardour Street in London, and it was every Thursday night. And I think the first Thursday night it was half full. The second Thursday night it was full. By the third Thursday night, they were queuing around the block to get in, and all the record companies suddenly got interested. And within a month or so, we got ourselves a record deal, and by January '67, we had a #2 hit record with Night of Fear, Then I Can Hear the Grass Grow, and Flowers in the Rain, which was the first record played on Radio 1. And we did a fabulous British tour with Jimi Hendrix, which was maybe the great last package tour.
I got to ask you about it. Got to ask you.
On it. And Pink Floyd were on it down the bill.
That's definitely something I noted that we need to spend a little time on, because that's a meeting of, it's like a nexus of all future music right there, And so did you get to spend time with Hendrix?
Absolutely. Lots. Yeah. I got with all three of them really, really well. They were great guys to work with. Hendrix was such a gentleman. Yeah. I know he was like ex-serviceman and all that, but he had great manners, which I don't think anyone ever mentions that. He went up in with him at a bar or in a room, and a woman would walk in. He would stand up, like, not many guys did that. He was a lovely man, and.
But you say serviceman, and there's a sense of how you carry yourself after that. That remains. Yeah. It's amazing.
But then he goes on, and so he's this lovely, humble sort of man off stage, steps onto the stage, and he becomes this rock and roll animal. I mean, we were supposed to be dual headlining. It was Hendrix and the Move. But there was no way that we would have wanted to follow Jimi Hendrix, I'm afraid. His show was excellent. And they were a great trio. It was the day, we had Cream around at the time, but they had that trio, wow, they could play.
And it was pretty opened up, right? I mean, there's a lot of improvisation in that band.
Yeah, I mean, it'd stop halfway through a song and no, I don't do this anymore. Let's do this one instead. And you just, play a Cream song or something like that. And the guys would have to join in. There was no rehearsal. That was I've still got the posters and the program from that time, 1968.
Who's in Floyd at that time? Who was in Floyd? Was it still Sid?
Yeah, it was Sid, and they were weird because on that set there was Andy Farrow, the Low, his band Amen Corner, who were great, and Andy's still going now, tours with Clapton. He's just played on the new Quill album, sung a great duet on that with Joy, and the Hendrix were. there's a band called Heir Apparent, and we all got on great except Floyd, who I don't know, they didn't really speak to anybody. And Syd Barrett was so out of it. I mean, wow.
So by that point, he's already out of it.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, a couple of shows where he literally just stood there, and I don't think he even knew where he was, you know?
So it's not an exaggerated urban myth. It just really was like that.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, yeah.
Did you like
Um,
their music?
I can't say that I did particularly. No,
And wasn't the nice?
I've never really been a big. I mean, I do. There's certain tracks that I like, but I know there are Floyd fanatics, you know, but I've never really got into their music.
I'm kind of with you on that. It's certain high points I try to look at, but generally not. The Nice were also on that, were they not?
That's right. I'd also forgotten them. Yeah. Um, and Keith Emerson, I mean, what a showman he was at that time as well. He's 68, and he's plunging daggers into his keyboards, you know. And then you got Hendrix setting fire to his guitar. I mean, and you got the Move. We were smashing up TV sets on stage and smashing equipment, much like the Who did. So it was a very visual tour as well. Yeah.
So yeah, well, nice to call it visual, but aggressive and kind of violent. What's the smashing about, Bev?
I don't know where that really came. We wanted a gimmick, and we had this. We're hypocrites, really, because we were saying, stop watching TV. It's like the evil monster that's going to take over your lives. And at the end of the show, we would, on the way to shows, we'd stop at secondhand shops and buy a couple of TVs for a couple of quid each, you know, put them on the roof rack, get to the gig, somewhere like the Marquee, and then at the end of the show, the last song we did, Carl Wayne would just smash these TVs, put a big axe through the TV screen. There would be glass flying everywhere. I used to get cut regularly, and so did people in the audience, but nobody complained. It's mad. And it's while we were doing a song called "Watch Your Step," an old Bobby Parker song, which Ace Kefford was singing at the time, and it ended up with half the equipment piled on top of the smashed up TV.
And there's a budget for this?
Well, the TVs cost nothing really, but
But the
unfortunately,
gear? But the instruments?
occasionally they got hurt. Yeah, I remember Roy. I think he had it's like a Fender Jaguar or something, and it just the neck snapped off. You know, I think with me throwing the bass drum into the pile of rubble. I don't think he's ever forgiven me for that.
So, how do you must have been at that point quite noted for the Move, and Jeff Lynne is someone that you run into. How does that end up that the two of you form ELO?
Well, Jeff and Roy formed ELO, really. I mean, Jeff and Roy.
You're a founding member, no?
Yes, I was, but it was Jeff. It was Roy that got Jeff involved with me. I didn't know Jeff, and they're both great songwriters, and they worked together. They helped each other, you know, record demos, stuff like that. And we'd asked Jeff Lynne before to join the Move, and he turned us down. But then he agreed in about 1970, but only on the provision that we form a new band and we finish the Move. But we had obligation to make one more Move album, which we did, just the three of us, called Message from the Country, which actually turned out to be a really nice album, a real fun album to do. And then we also found ourselves in a very unusual position of having top 20 records in the UK in the chart at the same time. We had California Man was a top 10 hit with the Move, And in the same chart, 10538 Overture was a hit for ELO. And that was the end of the move then, though. And that's when we made the first ELO album and the first ELO tour.
I want to backtrack a little bit because I'm thinking of an iconic drum moment that you create on Do Ya. When you're going to the out chorus, there's a big marching drum sound there. How was that produced? Do you remember?
I think I was just did it and then overdubbed it. I think I did 2 or 3 takes on it, so it made it so it sounded more like a marching band rather than just me. And I went on to do a lot of stuff like that with ELO, double overdubbing stuff.
Yes, you did. I definitely want to talk about production for ELO, but maybe that's getting ahead. I do find the beginning of ELO interesting, and of course I'm a classical guy as well as a rock guy, and the idea of now a band's got strings, and they're going to be integral, and so were you excited about that? Was that something that you found interesting when it became clear what ELO was going to be?
Well, I was never very keen on the first album, except I think 10538 Overture. There were 3 or 4 tracks I quite liked, but it was a bit too diverse. And then when we did the first British tour as ELO, it was a disaster, really. Roy was playing different instruments, and on every song there were like 5-minute gaps between songs. And the amplification was no one knew. We didn't know how to amplify a cello or a violin, and I think the sound must have been awful. And it did, so it really wasn't working out how we thought it might. And so Roy only stayed for that first album, and he left to form what was to become a very successful band called Wizard. And Jeff and I and Richard Tandy basically reformed the band into a 7-piece, a tighter unit. And we discovered these things that were called Barkus Berry pickups, which had fit onto the cellos and the violin. And suddenly we had a sound that the audience could hear. And we got a good sound guy. And that's when we took off to America, really, and that we concentrated on America from about 72, 73 onwards. And it worked, it gradually worked.
I have in particular a favorite ELO album, and I really would love to talk with you about it. When 1973 came around, I was 10 years old. And I have an uncle, Dave, who's about 9 years older than me, and he was experiencing the music as it came out. So at 10 years old, I heard On the Third Day.
Yeah.
Now, that is quite a record. I, to this day, challenge anyone to come up with a better sounding record, a better collection of songs. I mean, it's just one after another. The Ocean Breakup, King of the Universe in particular, I remember hearing it at summer camp, and just that it just soared in such a way. And we were all Beatles fans, so we're sort of ready for the next level of what you're going to do with a band and songwriting and production and everything. But your drum sound on that record and your choices and the way you groove on it, it's kind of like Ringo and Bonzo together, It's just, there's something about it that just feels so right for the moment. What do you recall about making that record? Because it's just such a gem.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the kind words. I think Jeff Lynne was just beginning to. With Roy, he was, I don't know, he felt restricted or something, and we made ELO 2, which was too long. The tracks were too long. But on the third day, Jeff began to come into his own. He's writing better and better songs. He was becoming a more, a better and better producer. And he was prolific, the way he wrote, and I love the way I was given total freedom to play whatever I wanted, Well, everyone was really, and we always laid the drum track down first. That became a thing, and then maybe the bass, and then because at this time we weren't using an orchestra; it was just the band at this stage. And I love the following. Face the Music was similar.
Well, strings are added on the third day.
Yeah, but it's not a foot. That's what we did on the third day and Face the Music. But when we got to El Dorado, we then started using a full orchestra.
Oh, right, right. But there's overdubbing. There's multiple overdubs of the string parts.
Oh, sure, yeah. But that was just our guys playing.
Yeah.
There's Wilf Gibson back in those days on violin. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was really strong, a strong element of the band, and it just complemented the writing to have those lines and commentaries going on, almost like backing vocals. Which again, another huge thing about ELO, the backing vocals.
Yeah. We were all, Jeff in particular. Well, I'm a massive Beatle fan. We were massive Beatle fans, and backing vocals are always very, very important. I love backing vocals on all forms of music. Actually, they often make the record.
So, any favorite songs from that album?
The ones that you mentioned mainly, I think. Ocean Breakup was great. Daybreaker. I get confused. I forget which songs on which albums.
Sure.
I think was that in the Hall of the Mountain King, or was
that one's there.
Yeah, that was pretty frantic drumming towards the end of that, as I remember. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great stuff, Bev. Thank you for all that. That's a big childhood memory for me. So when does ELO become less interesting for you?
Oh, not for a long time. I mean, the 70s were such a great. What was lovely is that we gradually made it. We went over to the States, played quite small venues. We weren't top of the bill on a lot of the shows. We played with people like Edgar and Johnny Winter and Joe Walsh, and then I think what was massive for us, I think it was 74, 5. Deep Purple asked us to be on their American tour, which was massive, and I knew a couple of the guys from Deep Purple anyway, and it was great to be on that bill. We had Ronnie Dio's band opened it, and then we went on as sort of special guests from England, Electric Light Orchestra, and then Deep Purple. But we got to play all the big arenas. Elf, that's right, Elf. So you had ELF and ELO on the same show. So we started playing all the sporting arenas, the hockey rinks and the 20,000 seaters. And it was that again was like totally new to us, but we had a good stage set, and we had the two cellists running around, and Mick Kaminsky, the violin player, running around the stage, and it was very visual. And so when the hit records started coming, and the hit albums started coming, and then we got to headline these places ourselves, and the fact that we'd done about 40 of them with Deep Purple really helped, because we'd been there before. And the whole of the 70s, I enjoyed it very much, and I love the albums. A New World Record, Out of the Blue, Discovery, and then I suppose when we got into the 80s, that's when the magic wore off for me, I think.
Turn to
I'm not a
film.
great fan of 80s. There's too many drum machines.
So you were being parted out to drum machines as those albums were being made?
No, I always always played the kit, but we stopped touring basically, and I love working live. Recording's fun, but for me, there's nothing like playing live. I think most drummers feel the same. I think.
You have to play to live, live to play.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. What we didn't mention him, but you just mentioned Purple. What was Ian Pace like for you?
Oh yeah, good. Good. A bit underrated, I think. Ian. He doesn't get mentioned as much as he should. Nice guy, and you listen to a lot of Deep Purple albums, and wow, that guy drives that band. He really does.
He really does. There's a lot happening in the drum chair in the classic Purple stuff.
Yeah.
I love that there's this line of, okay, guitar players, but we're going to kick you in the ass. And Bill Ward is a great example of that too.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and we'll get on to Sabbath, I'm sure, but Cozy Powell was another one of my favorite drummers, and he played in Sabbath too. But I think I came after him. Yeah, I did.
But that's interesting too. Is the that style of drumming is so particular, but you can go from ELO to Sabbath. That's a lot of range, Bev.
Yeah, well, it was more like going back to the Move days, really. And Tony asked me because they'd made this great album, and Bill Ward had played on it, and he played really well on it.
Yeah,
but he couldn't face the idea of. I don't think he was physically fit enough to tour. So Tony asked me if I'd do the tour in place of Bill. This was 1982, 83, I think. And I wasn't doing very much at all. ELO had stopped touring. So I've had it a challenge, obviously. I didn't know their songs that well. But again, that was such a delight to work with. Ian Gillan was lead singer on that tour. And he is a proper rock and roll animal. He was a great guy to work with. Tony, I love to bits. Geezer Butler, lovely, another smashing fella. We had a keyboard player as well called Jeff Nichols. We all got on so well, and we did a European tour and we did a couple of American tours, and I had a blast. I really loved it.
I would love to hear more about hanging out with those guys and what they're into in music, because I know Geezer Butler's the guy that's writing those lyrics, right? So he's got to be into some heavy shit, and the just the general Tony thing where he's capable of playing fingerstyle and doing jazz stuff and does. So that's an interesting another nexus for me is Sabbath and the different people coming in and out of Sabbath and different periods of Sabbath and what material is being played. And can you talk to me a little bit about that? And I know it's a broad question, but what's it like when you're putting together a Sabbath production with Tony Iommi and Geezer and these guys?
Yeah, well, I never really got to I did record some percussion with them on an album called Eternal Idol, but I never really got to play. I never did a studio album with them. I just played with them live, and
Yeah.
they were great to play with live.
But that's what I mean. Like when
You
you're
can't.
putting together the live show.
Oh yeah, Geezer's when he plays so many notes that you can't. Sometimes with a bass player you can sync in together. With your bass drum and the bass while the bass player's playing. But with Geezer, he's playing a million notes. So you have to keep it fairly simple, really. But Tony's guitar solos are a work of art. But he's so subtle. He's got he plays harp as well. I mean, he's just a lot of people just think of him as being a heavy metal guitar player. He's not at all.
No, it's the full package, right?
Yeah, and the finale of the show, the two encore songs were "Smoke on the Water" and "Paranoid," and you don't get two songs as strong as that normally.
That's so great. So something that I wanted to try with you, which I thought you maybe you'd find fun, is we do a thing called the lightning round, where I'll just pepper you with names of drummers, and you just give me, if you want, one word response or just a really brief response. Does that sound like fun?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's start with John Heisman.
Worked with him in Coliseum. I remember going to the Zildjian factory with him, and he was outstanding, especially on drum solos. Amazing.
Okay. John Marshall.
I'm not really familiar with him.
Ah, from the Jack Bruce stuff at all?
Yeah, I can't comment on that one.
Okay.
No.
All right. Phil Collins.
Again, underrated, I think. Such a great drummer with Genesis, but then he became a vocalist, didn't he? But
yes, but the drumming.
Yeah, he's a great drummer, and he had Chester Thompson on his tours as well, and those two sometimes played together. That was fabulous.
Cozy Powell.
Old friend of mine, great drummer. When I remember when I joined Sabbath and we were rehearsing and we did the song Black Sabbath, down, 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 and I phoned Cozy and said, "What the hell is the timing on Black Sabbath? You know, is there a count or anything?" And he said, "Oh no, so you just watch Tony's guitar go up and down and you just follow it."
I'm sorry, I've always wondered about that. It's just because it's such a prolonged thing, and you're kind of like, I can't help but be in a rhythm section and think, who's in charge of this?
Yeah.
How are they thinking about it? And the overall goal. It's got to be so fucking slow and heavy, right? But how did they achieve it? It just cracks me up.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Bill Ward must, he was there when they recorded it, but I just sort of, guessed my way through it, really.
Oh my God! So you had the same situation, and you had to come up with your own solve for it.
Yeah, and Cozy didn't really help. Just watch Tony. That's what he said.
Oh, that's incredible. So were you trying to subdivide at that point, or you're just going?
Yeah, after a couple of shows, you really get into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just relax. You just got to relax and not. I find that even to this day, when I'm playing with Quill or my band, you if you feel remotely uptight or nervous, you're not going to play well. You've just got to relax and just feel it. Mm-hmm.
And did you you must have had a lot of fun and really get featured in a band like that.
Yeah, the real trick they played on me once. We were playing Las Vegas, and I had this enormous drum riser. It was like 10 foot high, and he had car sort of spotlights, hundreds of them all around this drum riser to blind the audience almost. And it was like a perspex glass type thing. And there was the usual. We had a long guitar solo, a long bass solo, and a drum solo. And it was Las Vegas, and it was my birthday, November the 25th. And I did my solo, and it always ends with, I'll just do I can't remember how I did it, but a repeated thing like 3 times, so they knew it was the end, and so they'd come back on. So I did. It's about 8 minutes long anyway, and I did this riff thing, looking around, where are they? And I look under my riser, and the rest of the band are standing, looking up at me with glasses of champagne, saying "Happy Birthday." and not making any attempt to come back on. So basically I did the same solo again. Tony's quite a joker, actually. Practical joker. He loves it.
I read his book Iron Man, and there's a story in there about him leaving a snake in Dio's car.
That sounds like Tony. Yeah. To this day, you know, I've just said I'm seeing him at the weekend. He'll play some kind of joke on me. He always does. Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. Do you stay in touch with Roy Wood?
Funnily enough, I'm seeing him tonight. It's kind of a sad thing, but it is a sad thing. Rick Price, who played in the Move with me, and then he played in Wizard with Roy, sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago, and he's not going to have a funeral, and he's a smashing guy, Rick. So we can't go to his funeral. So we've arranged, a bunch of us, people that know Rick Price, we're getting together tonight, just having a meal out and just to celebrate his life, really. So I haven't seen Woody in a couple of years because of the wretched COVID thing. But so I'm seeing him tonight for the first time in ages, along with quite a few other musos that I haven't seen in years.
That's awesome to know that that's going on even under those circumstances. Let's jump back to the lightning round. Alan White.
No, he's just died, hasn't he?
He's just passed.
Yeah. A bit proggy for me, his style. But it fits for Yes, just perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Very powerful drummer.
Yeah.
Bill Bruford.
Yeah, Gentle Giant.
No, yes, King Crimson.
Oh, it's King Crimson. I never really got it. Again, I couldn't make a sensible comment on that one.
John Weathers from Gentle Giant.
I'm probably the same. Unless I've listened to these bands, I can't really say, and I haven't, in truth.
Bill Ward.
Bill's great, absolutely. Again, it's the guy you never hear of, really, you know, because it's Ozzy, isn't it? And it's Tony and it's Geezer, such strong characters. But Bill was so important to the creation of Black Sabbath. Totally, he played some wicked stuff. Yeah,
yeah, really, really something. And when you hear the live recordings, and I have the early gigs where you can tell how loud they are, and he's still got that 4-piece kit, you know, right? Couple of cymbals, making that happen against all odds sonically.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
And back in those days, I think what people don't remember, you know, monitors have become part of your life now. We all have our own monitor mix and stuff. You know, whenever I go out, I've always got a great monitor mix. Back in those days, back in the 60s and even the 70s, early 70s, there's no such thing. You know, back when Sabbath started out, there were no monitors. I don't know how they could hear each other. I couldn't hear it back when I was with Danny Lane and even early in Move days. You know, I don't know. We just did it, you know.
Yeah.
You didn't have anybody, you couldn't say, hey, I need more bass, I need more keyboards or whatever.
It's so true. There was no need for it yet, and then the need became apparent, and then they started doing it.
Well, you remember the Beatles at Shea Stadium with a couple of AC30 amps and Ringo, not amplified at all. I don't know how they did it.
That is amazing.
Well, it's probably why they stopped playing live, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's probably, because all they could hear was screaming girls. They couldn't even hear each other.
And of course, the best thing possible happens where they become involved with the studio and turn it into an instrument and make those albums where it couldn't be done live at that point.
Yeah, well, if we're going into the Beatles, I think that's a different area, but they were just magnificent. I mean, they might have made a couple of bad songs, but not many.
Not many. Bev, you are so active performing to this moment. I would love if you could tell me about all the projects that you're involved with. You just came off of a significant British tour. You are just a powerhouse to this moment. I'm not even going to ask you how old you are, but at this point, you're playing more than most people. So talk to me about what's happening these days.
I don't know. I mean, I've just been sponsored by Natal Drums. We had a lovely kit from them. So that I've got like 7 kits in the house now. And things just happen. And I've just finished the Bev Bevan band, along with a guy called Andy Bennett from Ocean Colour Scene. We've been on a show called Stand Up and Rock with Jasper Carrott, who's a very old friend of mine, a very famous comic in Great Britain, not so much in America. And we've just done a very long tour with him, very successful tour with him. And I'm touring, and we just finished, well, it's been out a couple of months now, an album with Quill, my band Quill, called Riding Rainbows. And I love that. I love this album. It's one of the best albums I've ever played on. And we've got people like Andy Fairweather on it, Chris Norman from Smokey, who sings a great duet with Joy. John Lodge, the Moody Blues, is playing on it. Nick Pentelo, fantastic sax player. Used to work with Roy Wood. Now he's with Andy Fairweather these days. And it's come together. Tony Martin, ex-lead vocalist with Black Sabbath. And it's a fabulous album, and I just hope we can make something happen with it. And then I've got other projects. I've been asked to play on a few sort of charity albums and stuff. I'm about to do I'm not quite sure why. I'm doing a record with Don Powell from Slade. We're doing a version of My Sharona. That's going to be released soon. I don't know how that's going to do. And other people that I'd love to work some more with Tony Iommi, just do anything with him, just record stuff with him, be great. And yeah, there's still, it's still happening, which at my age is a bit of a miracle. But yes, I'm loving it. I'm loving my life.
That's incredible. And you feel good because you're playing the drums all the time, and it really keeps you alive, doesn't it?
Yeah, the fact that this tour is finished now, we've got no more plans really for this year. I mean, Joy and I are getting married in September.
Oh, nice.
That's a big thing. And
wow.
And then we'll have a honeymoon and stuff. And so I don't think don't think we'll be working live this year. But there's quite a few recording projects to do. But next year, I'm hoping that we will be back out there.
Tell people a little bit about Quill.
Yeah, Quill's a great band. They've been going a long, long time. I was a fan of the band back in the 80s. I used to go and watch them, the Birmingham band. Joy is the original lead singer. But we got like Kate McWilliams, a fabulous violinist. It's sort of country rocky feel to it. Kate's been with the band about 25 years. Andy Edwards, we've already mentioned. John Jowett, who's a fabulous bass player. Our guitarist, Lee Evans, terrific player. He co-wrote the songs on Riding Rainbows with myself and Joy. An outstanding keyboard player, Abby Brandt, who's worked with Steve Winwood in the past. And it's a great, great band, and it's unknown totally in the USA. But
how can we know more about it?
Well, you can, if you please go to www.quilluk.com. www.quilluk.co. .com. Yes, right. They check out the album, and you'll be able to hear tracks from it and stuff. And I think you'll like it. I think you'll love it. I hope so.
I love bands with violin.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's the same for me, really. I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting, right? Because if you think about the British folk proggy scene, sort of like Pentangle, and guys like Bert Jansch and that kind of stuff, it's a really vital scene.
Yeah. It is. It's. I've been on this. Just hope we don't lose these venues. That I've been saying this on tour. My serious bit of chat is that this pandemic it has hit the music industry probably worse than any other industry I can think of. Say we went 18 months without stepping on a stage, but at least we could go in the studio and make an album. But that was difficult because you had to do it individually because you couldn't mix with anybody. And the poor old road crew, the guys, they're important people, the lighting guys, the sound guys, everybody, they've had no work at all for all this time. And some of the theatres, it's sad to say, because they haven't been able to open, a couple of nice ones that I know around here have had to close down. So I've been preaching, hey, we've got to keep our theatres alive, support our theatres, make sure they don't go under.
With you all the way there, going to as many shows as I can. Anybody that's out, my hat's off to them. And everyone's trying to do it and make it work under these circumstances.
Yeah, well, hey, I think we're, light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're getting through this now, and more people are getting back on the road. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go and see as many shows as I can.
Yeah. And one of my favorite drummers, Terry Chambers, was just over here with a band called XTC, and they are still rocking and playing all that stuff. And that's the Swindon band. Did you ever hear them?
No, I know of them. I'll check it out. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, it's always very top-notch drumming with great drum sounds, and it's that
Yeah.
Pagem Stone Room sound that's great, 79, 80, I know that's something you would enjoy. Bev, you're a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's a great honor. It really is. It's I've got I'm talking to you from my sort of music room, and I've had some nice awards, but that was the biggest. That was a real biggie. Yeah, especially when there's a lot of people who are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I can't believe they're not there. It's amazing. So I'm honored that I am. Yeah, and I'm hoping to get over to America, and I want to go over to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because I've never been.
In Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I play drums as needed for the rock singer, songwriter Todd Rundgren. And
Great.
It took forever to get him involved. And then by the time they got him in, he was sort of like, okay, it's good for my fans enjoy it, but people have been, snubbing him for so long with this. And you kind of wonder what the process is. I mean, obviously,
it is weird. I voted for him because once you are a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you get to vote. Yeah, every year, and yeah, he was high. You get to. They give you 10 names and you get to tick 5. And Todd Rundgren's was the first one I ticked for sure.
Excellent. Well, Bev, it's such a pleasure to speak with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time. You're a busy man. You've just come off a tour. And I wonder, before I let you go, tell me about the Cornish coast.
Oh, go there. It's beautiful. Absolutely, yeah. It's probably maybe my favorite part of Great Britain is that Devon and Cornwall. Beautiful. But there's some great places in America too. So we're hoping to come over and I haven't been for a long, long time. So I'd like to come back and visit.
What about a Quill Bev Bevan band double bill on tour in the U.S.?
Well, yeah, that would be great. If we could find someone to invite us to do that, we'll be there like a shot.
We should talk about it. I'll see.
Okay.
I'll see anything I can do because that sounds like a winner.
Yeah. Okay.
And is there a website where they can see all Bev Bevan things?
Yeah, it's all on. If you go to there is a Bev Bevan website as well. It's pretty easy to find, and it's certainly linked with the Quill one, www.quilluk.com.
Nice. Well, sir, I want to thank you so much for your time. Our listeners have enjoyed basking in your historical essence and all of your musical abilities. It's so great to speak with you. You're one of my champions, and I wish you all the best as we go forward into the next period.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hope to see you in the flesh one day. Yeah.
I do hope we can have a pint some point.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. My guest has been the great Bev Bevan, drummer of ELO and the Move and Sabbath and beyond. Please check out all of his links. He's got a lot of stuff going on. And I thank you all for listening. See you next time.